Okay, well, let's get started, everyone. And we want to welcome you here today to our webinar at Divine Renovation. And at Divine Renovation, we seek to inspire and equip parishes to be on mission. And so we're excited to engage with you today around this. I want to take a few moments just to introduce myself. My name is Rob McDowell. I serve as one of the coaches here at Divine Renovation. I also serve on as part of the senior leadership team at St. Benedict Parish. And so this makes me a little bit more nervous than normal because I have both the people that I'm accountable to in each of my roles on with me today. So if for those of you that don't like it when your boss is looking over your shoulder at your work, I've got both of mine today looking over my shoulder. And they both threaten me that I have to help them look good in today's webinar, or there's a good chance that I won't be employed after it. Anyways, that being said, I want to welcome Ron Huntley and Father Simon Lobo. Guys, why don't you just take a quick minute and introduce yourself to the audience members that may not know you today.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. I always see myself working for you, just for the record.
That's my plan. That's my plan.
That's my plan. It is great to be here. My name is Ron Huntley, one of the co-founders of the Divine Renovation Ministry, director of coaching, and I just love being here. I'm so glad there are so many people from different traditions with us, there are people that are involved with schools that are in on this webinar with us, and I just want you to know that you are all incredibly welcomed. It's so exciting to be able to talk to you in this really difficult time, so welcome.
Hi, my name is Father Simon Lobo. I'm the pastor at St. Benedict Parish, and again, just a delight to be able to be with you on this call and in all humility, because we're learning as we go day by day. This is an exciting season of learning as we're on a steep learning curve, all of us, and so we're in this together. And sharing with the guys, my very first time meeting with Father James, we went out for pizza in Ottawa. This was just a few months before I became the associate pastor in 2015 at St. Benedict. And he was explaining who these guys were on staff, Ron and Rob, and they were both different. One was a sweetener packet and one was a sugar packet, as he was drawing out the staff org chart right on the table there with salt shakers and pepper shakers and stuff. So anyways, it's great to really see you guys in person. You're much better looking in person.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I won't. Anyways, I'll avoid the sarcastic comments. It is great to be here. Why don't we just take a moment and pause and kick our time off with prayer? Ron, would you be willing to open us up in this time with prayer?
That'll be my pleasure. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, amen. God, thank you for this opportunity, this technology. Thank you for the friendships that we share. And thank you for all the people that are tuning in. But I know that there's so many churches and organizations around the world in this pandemic experience that are struggling with finances, wrestling with multiple things, finances being one of them. God, I pray that today, as we open up that topic, as we explore that topic, if there are any ways that we need to relook at money personally, if there are any things that you want to speak into us, Lord, about our attachment to money, or any ways that it's not of you, or we give you the freedom to convict our hearts. We ask your Holy Spirit to fill us and to convict our hearts personally as individuals, as well as collectively as we work towards adapting and innovating in this season of COVID-19. Lord, I pray that we would help each other grow in this time, that we would stay open, and that you would give us 2 or 3 actionable ideas that we can leave this webinar with that will make an absolute difference in how we lead and how that impacts us financially. And we pray all this in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Amen. Well, today we want to look at the subject of how do we respond to the financial challenges that churches and leaders face in the midst of the coronavirus. And, in some ways, guys, we're dealing with multiple, crises as we think about it. There's kind of the whole COVID-19 going on and people are sick. And then along with that, there's the social isolation that people are wrestling with. But, beyond all of that, and what we want to kind of focus on today is the financial ramifications of where we find ourselves in and the challenges that that's creating for churches and for leaders. And so today we want to take a moment and focus on the financial reality and what is it that we can look at and what are some ways that as a church and as leaders we can step into this place and lead our organizations well in in all areas, but particularly the financial area as well. And so that's kind of where we're heading today. Just want to give a couple of announcements and some instructions. We're going to be referring to a resource called a resource kit that's got a bunch of tools and things, and you can find that on Divine Renovation's website. But also throughout the webinar, we're going to do some poll questions, and so that will be coming up, and just we'd love for you to weigh in on that and respond to that. But also, we want to respond to your questions. There's a couple of different ways that you can communicate. You'll see at the bottom of your screen that there's a Q&A function and a chat function. We largely won't be looking at much, or I won't be looking at the chat function. Feel free to use that. But if there is a question that you'd like us to respond to, go ahead and do that in the Q&A box as well. So as we kind of get started in this area, Father Simon, I'd love to kind of just ask that you'd kick us off. What has been a bit of the snapshot, or give us a bit of a snapshot from your world around, your initial reaction to all this in regards to finances, and what were some of the things that you did initially as you had to kind of respond to this new reality?
Right. Thanks, Rob. So we've been in this for a couple weeks now, and I remember it was just like things were changing day by day. I couldn't keep track of it all, and I was just emotionally dealing with the fact that, wow, okay, so there's this global pandemic. Our churches are not going to be able to remain physically open for people, for masses, and that very last weekend that we had Mass at St. Benedict, there was this young family. They just had a newborn, and so they had 5 kids, if I'm not mistaken. And I found out, I think the dad is a pilot, and so he came over, saying hi, his wife with the newborn in her arms, and she's just sobbing, thinking about she's not going to be able to receive the Eucharist and come to church, and just feel that sense of losing everything. And he said, yeah, I'm probably going to lose my job here. I'm going to find out in the next day or two. As you know, with such a decrease in flying, it didn't even occur to me at the time, but he really, was losing his job. And that kind of triggered something for me where I realized, oh man, this is an even bigger, like there's so many ramifications to this whole thing that even touch on finances. And so, I mean, as a pastor, I'm starting to go through the checklist of, okay, so if people aren't going to be in the building, they're not, it wasn't the first place where my head went, but it was one of the places where my head went. I think we're not going to be able to take up a collection. So there's a huge chunk of our weekend revenue that comes in through envelopes, through even loose change in the basket as it's being passed around. And so just in my head, I did some quick math, and I was thinking, do I have to brace myself for what does it look like to operate this place at, I don't know, 2/3 of our normal revenue versus what we get. So those were some of those initial experiences of, just that immediate, like, oh, this is sinking in. This is a big deal. And yeah, there's a whole financial component to this, that, again, huge compassion for those who are losing out on savings and who've been investing for years, who, watching all those things slip away and stuff. But also just wondering what's this going to mean for church and being able to continue to fund the mission. Yeah.
I think generally most of us, the ramp up was really quick, depending on, different countries responded differently. And I know we've got a bit of worldwide audience here. And so, yeah, kind of that whole emotional whiplash, kind of sets in. Ron, I'd love to hear from you at this moment. You're coaching, churches, all kinds of leaders from, different countries and things along those lines. What would you say, or what are some of the things that you're speaking into pastors to kind of help them come to grips with this reality that they're facing within their leadership and their parishes and all that's going on?
Yeah, I'm smiling at Father Mike Delaney from Tasmania. He says, "How did Father Simon only get his income reduced by 2/3?" I'm thinking, it could be even worse for sure, Father Mike. In coaching into leaders, and I'm just going to encourage all of you to think about this, because I know, again, there are people online from other backgrounds, not necessarily just the parish. Some of you are involved in other parts of Christian ministry. And I think in seasons when things are going down, like when everything that we took for granted is crumbling around us, there are always opportunities to adapt and innovate. And it's so hard because it's going to cause you and I to think differently. We're going to have to let go of the things that we take for granted. And sometimes we don't even know what they are. And so it really shakes our foundation. And this is happening to everyone at the same time. And so in that, I would say God has a plan for us in this. There is a way out. It's going to require different thinking. It's going to require letting go of some assumptions. It's going to require teamwork. But there are things that we'll be able to do, and I believe that to be true. I always believe that to be true, because in every situation, there are always some people or some organizations or some churches who seem to be on the rise when everybody else is slightly falling away. Somebody finds a way to win. And I believe that somebody could be you. Why not you? And so I'm looking forward to continuing to unpack this stuff now. But so to leaders, I'm saying, allow that paradigm shift to take place in you. Allow yourself to be opened up to what is possible, even though you don't have the answers yet. That is a complete paradigm shift. Years ago, I read a book. I forget the name of the author, but the book was called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he talked about two different perspectives that we can take financially to issues. And the situation is this: both dads have the same amount of money in their bank account, and they both are looking at the same thing. The poor dad looks at the thing he wants, and he looks at his bank account and says, I can't afford it. The rich dad looks at what he wants, looks at his bank account and says, how can I afford it? And it really, the paradigm there is, one person just looks at all the limitations and lets that define them, where the rich dad looks at it and says, I wonder what I could do to still get that. And so when I think about funding a parish and the mission of the church, if this is gone, the question is, I hope we're not saying we can't do it. I hope we're saying, how can we do it? And that's what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah. So what are the opportunities? One of the things we're going to have to do to get there is kind of work past our fear. I'd love to kind of throw this poll question out to everyone, and I'd just love to just get their feedback on how would you rate your current level of fear? Would you consider it low, medium, or high? How would you rate your current level of fear? What you personally are experiencing. And so it'd be great to kind of just see where people are at. Father Simon, I'd love to just kind of hear, as we talk about the whole idea of fear and, how we're going to kind of work through that. It's a real emotion that, many people are dealing with. So how can leaders, and really anyone probably beyond leaders, but particularly leaders, deal with fear as they're experiencing it in this season?
I think you're right, Rob. That's the number one issue, I think, in the midst of all this. It's the fear and the panic that compounds on top of the crisis. And so we're dealing with this, and with the 24-hour news cycle, this is all we're getting. This could be a steady diet of COVID-19 all the time. And so I think it's important, for one, to maintain just our healthy rhythms. I've learned a lot from you, Rob, about self-leadership and just being able to lead ourselves well, to manage ourselves. You can't do a good job of leading anybody else until you're leading yourself well. And so some of those basic rhythms, and I'll be honest, like a week ago at this time, I was in the roller coaster. Today I'm in a great space, praise God. But stuff was coming out sideways. I was angry and impatient. I was, assuming the worst of people. It was ugly. It was like, who is this person? I don't know you, but actually, yeah, no, it's the flesh. If you heard my homily from this past weekend, I was talking about the flesh, and I have lots of experience of that broken human fallen condition. I could write the book on that one for sure. So So how do we, my takeaway was, how do we not be ruled by the flesh, but receive the Spirit? And some of the way we get into that space of being open to the Spirit and being healthy is all those basic things: getting a good night's sleep, eating well, exercising. Exercising is so important. I know for me, I'm really missing soccer. I used to play with Father Alex twice a week. We just drop in on this kick around soccer game, and we're missing out on that. So trying to find other ways to get some kind of cardio in, get outside, and still connect with people in a healthy way, disconnect from technology. Cause I was saying this too, like if I used to be, attached to this thing, now it's like a full on addiction. So how do I not let this rule my life? Because that can be a source of just taking in more and more of this fear. So those are a few things just off the top. And I think it's so important too to surround yourself with people who love you enough to speak the truth. And I've got a great team around me, including some of my brother Companions of the Cross priests. And so Father Alex being one of them, he's just such a joy and a delight to even though looks like he's chirping me on the Q&A right now.
You can change your answer. Don't feel you have to stick with that.
So Father Alex, apart from Father Alex, I'm surrounded by some wonderful people who love me. And just the other day I was talking to him, and it's like, hey, you know what? I think I way overreacted in that meeting. And what could I have done to do? Like, I knew I was out of line, but what could I have done to do better? And he just said, he paused and he's like, yeah, maybe if you had tried to stay curious a little bit longer, ask a few more questions rather than come in with the answer. And basic stuff that I know, but when I'm in the heat of the moment, I'm at my absolute worst. And so, anyways, this is getting off topic from all the financial stuff, but just to say that I'm a work in progress. And so that's part of how I try to lead myself.
Well, but I think it's relevant because, maintaining emotional self-control in this season and not letting our emotions get away from us, I think is key. I'd also like to echo the exercise part. Yesterday I ran to the driveway and back, the end of the driveway and back. It was a great 45 seconds. And so I would encourage everyone, to just lean into exercise in this season. Yeah.
Way to lead by example, Robbie. I appreciate that.
Trying to set the pace for everyone else. Just want to see if we have if our poll responses come back yet or not. And so, there we are. How would you rate your current levels of fear? 25% say low, 60% say medium, and 15% say high. And again, I don't know. It would seem like that's reflecting a little bit healthier attitude than we get, the sense we get in the media and in some of the larger contexts. So any comments on that, guys, just as you kind of see that response?
I would have put myself as medium. I wasn't able to vote because we're panelists, but I would have put myself in medium as well. I think I have a healthy awareness of the impact this is going to have on us economically, but I have a great faith in Jesus. And so, if the bottom fell out of everything, we still have Christ and we still have the church. And so I can stand assured in that reality of who I am in Christ, who he is to me and who he is to all of you watching. And so that's the high awareness, and also aware that this is not insignificant time economically in our global, this is a big deal. Yeah. And so that's why I put myself in medium.
Yeah, no. Any further comments, Father Simon, around that?
No, I'd echo what Ron's saying for sure. I think I would have started in the low. I was a bit slow on the uptake, to be honest, with everybody in terms of realizing how serious this is. But on a personal note, I just feel a deep peace that God is going to get us through this. He always does. He's still going to rise on Easter Sunday, and so I'm filled with hope. But at the same time, I again just have incredible compassion for everybody who's suffering, and we're praying lots for all those who are most in need right now.
Yeah. So we're getting a number of questions in, but Ron, I want to come back to you first because I think I think where I want to go with this question may touch on a few of these, but Ron, how should leaders, or people in general, again, I know we're kind of speaking to leaders, but there's probably some others listening in, be thinking about approaching their finances in this season? Like, how do we be proactive in how we manage our money or handle our money in this season?
Good question. I think we need to be honest with where our gifts lie and what we're good at. So if you're a pastor and you're going, oh man, I'm not good at this at all, lean into your financial counsel. Like, really lean into people who are good at this stuff, because people that are good with finances and have a background in accounting and these things, this is their sweet spot. And so lean into that. If you're really good at that yourself, then great, lean into that. But first of all, be honest for where you're at and lean into others who have areas of expertise. I can only imagine how hard it must be for pastors who are in a place where they're looking at possibly, having to lay people off or things like that. And for shepherd leaders, that's going to be really stressful and hard. Yes, it's financially driven, but then it's relationally impacting. And so there are all kinds of things that I know people are going through. So as leaders, again, that paradigm shift of what's possible, I think, is where we need to start. But you also need to be honest with how you're feeling about it. And you need to reach out to people who are good at this stuff. And hopefully you already have them in your team of people in terms of finance counsels and so on, so that you're making good decisions. But don't let fear drive your decisions, or pray into fear. Pray into how you're feeling emotionally. Pray into the relationships that you are building to make these decisions. Like, make Christ the center of all those things, so the Holy Spirit can have a place to speak reason into where we might be going. The other thing I would say is this, because I'm an apostolic evangelist. If you've done any of the APEST profiling, you can do it online. It's $8, A-P-E-S-T. It's from Ephesians chapter 4. I'm apostolic evangelist. I'm losing my mind with enthusiasm and excitement right now. Because, and this is going to link back financially. This physical church that we've all been going to and gathering around is so resource intense, isn't it? And it's literally gone. And so it's giving us an opportunity to refocus our assets and resources to kind of finally own this online world in a way that we probably should have been doing 10 to 15 years ago. If we can literally divert our resources and attention and understand this online world, so that when this pandemic's behind us and the church gets back up and running, we have both going at the same time. Now, I know so many churches, and Father Simon, I hope you get to speak into this in a minute or so, but St. Benedict Parish, through online church, has grown exponentially in the people that are actually attending. Exponentially. And so I think there are 4 things we need to get right in terms of this online world in this season. One of them is, how do we do church online? What does that need to look like? How do we do evangelization online? And I think we're really excited to get ready to launch something for post-Easter. We're going to help you with Alpha Online. We need to get community right online. And then we need to get outreach right online. And not just as a Band-Aid to get us through this season, but as something we should probably be good at anyway. And so with that in mind, we have to get giving right online. And that's a part of being church. And so if we're evangelizing and growing our church, and then we're growing, connecting them into community, and then connecting them into worship, you see what's happening, right? The same thing that was happening before the pandemic in terms of what we're trying to do in Divine Renovation is help people to go on mission again. And so we're going on mission, except it's a virtual mission. It's still a mission. And so how do we speak into that and give people opportunities to invite to give? And that's where we need to grow as leaders as we kind of head out in this new frontier, which is the online world that's been there for 15 years, but predominantly ignored by local parishes. So that's my thought on that.
All right. And on the next question, if you could just show a little enthusiasm on the next question, Ron, we'd appreciate that. We're trying to engage our viewers here. Father Simon, there's a couple questions coming up in regards to what it looks like to actually, how do we use our money? Anonymous attendee says, money's tight and getting tighter. So what should we invest in? And then there's another question from Wendy Ellis says, I understand we have to take care of our finances, but I think we have to be so cognizant of the dire straits so many of our parishioners are in. so many have suddenly lost their jobs. What are some of the best strategies, ways of balancing these two equally important concerns? And so, as we think about our finances in this season, how should we prioritize, how we handle our finances and our money, and where should we invest it, kind of with all the push and pull of the demands of this season?
That's an excellent question. And this is obviously going to take some personal discernment for your own context. But I recall somebody once giving a teaching on money and saying there's at least 3 buckets. And I think you can use money, you can spend it on things, you can save it, and you can use it to give. So spend, save, give are 3 ways that you can use that money. And I think that's the same applies today, but it's just, how do we figure out exactly what goes into which bucket right now? So, and I love the first anonymous question, how should we invest it? Because the starting place where I went was, what do we have to do to save? How do we reduce our expenses? Where are the places we have to stop spending? And so we've looked at, all the basic things because of our building. Like now is not the time to repave the parking lot, for example. Actually, I was saying before we got on the call that suddenly all of our parking issues have disappeared. There's always spaces in the parking lot now. You never have to park on the street. It's beautiful. Nobody's double parking. I'm just so grateful. But so anyways, that's one of you got to find the silver lining in all this, right? So there's things where minimalistic. In fact, Ryan, who is our facilities manager, he's doing such an amazing job. He literally unplugged some of our fridges to move all the food into one place and to reduce electricity bills, water bills, heating bills, all that kind of stuff as much as possible. So be wise, be prudent about where you can save money for sure. But I love the question of invest. Where do we invest? And it's literally just coming out of a couple meetings here with my finance council and my leadership team talking about that, because it might seem counterintuitive. Wait, you mean you're actually going to spend money right now? And I think to Ron's point earlier about this is an opportunity. There is so much available to us in this season. And 2 of the things that we're looking at right now is, one is our website. We were already in the process of upgrading our website, and it's like, you know what? We need to finish that project and not put that on hold. And secondly is our live stream, and how do we continue to improve the quality of our live stream? We've got something, but I think it's because Father James and the team, they were early adopters to live stream. Now some of our technology, our cameras or audio or whatever is dated now. So how do we improve that? So I see those as a couple of areas, because really our website that's our church right now. That's what people, that's what they experience as St. Benedict Parish. They can't walk into our physical foyer. They can't be greeted with warm hospitality, people, loving up on them and smiling and shaking their hands. What will they experience? It's going to stbenedict.ca. That's what they will experience. And so we want that to be the best it possibly can. So we want to try and invest in those areas. And I think the third thing you said is, with regards to those in need, and that we have a St. Vincent de Paul ministry. So we're trying to make sure that they continue to help out and find out who are the people truly in need, so we can support them. I think we're in real time, we're trying to strategize. How do we help these people? How do we even find out who they are and make sure that they have what they need? So those are all beautiful questions and a few simple thoughts on how to respond.
Yeah, I read a quote a couple days ago from John Maxwell, and I thought it was very fitting for this time. Just because you're struggling doesn't mean you're failing. And I think that's how parishes need to think in this season, right? Yeah, are some parishes probably going to see some declines in giving and finances? Yeah, are they going to be strapped? But that in and of itself doesn't speak to our overall direction or overall results. And so while we are going to have to step into some challenging choices and seasons, it doesn't mean that there's no opportunity in front of us. and so kind of think, through that a little bit more. A few more questions here around that are coming in around how do we speak to the issue. There's one is now a time for us to talk about money with parishioners? Is that brave or foolish? Obviously, there's a lot of pastors that are thinking, "Whoa, the giving is down, and how do I generate that, and how do I speak to my parishioners about it, or do I assume that everybody's finances are down and I shouldn't talk about it?" Ron, what's your initial thoughts around kind of that question?
What this is doing to all of us right now on all kinds of different levels is exposing gaps in how we do things. And there are so many of us who are not comfortable talking about money. And we've never been comfortable talking about money. We should have grown in that skill set a long time ago, and we just ignored it, or we haven't, or we tiptoed around it. We never really took it on as something that was as a part of what leadership looks like. And now it's obvious. We have to respond. We don't have a choice. We can't kick that can down the road any longer. It's like working out of a team. So many people haven't been working out of a team, and now all of a sudden you need one and you don't have one, and you're going, "Oh no, what am I going to do?" Like, this accelerated time of change is exposing all these things that we don't do well. And I want you to know it's okay. It's okay. We can't change the past, but we can decide who we're going to be moving forward as leaders. And getting comfortable talking about money and growing in our understanding of even how we look at it and perceive it is really important. And we should have been good at that anyway. But it's okay. But let's get good at it now. We don't have a choice. We have to get good. And I've been saying, Father Simon, I haven't been able to tell you this yet, but when I first saw you do it, both in person at Mass, the last Mass before we went online, and online, the way you talked about giving, both in person, like when I was there and online, was expertly done. Like, you really did an amazing job. So for any of you watching, to try to wrap your head around what this could look like, literally go to stbenedict.ca and watch the live stream when there was nobody in the church, but also watch the one where everybody was in the church, or that was actually a reduced crowd because this was really starting to take place. But Father Simon really did a wonderful job. And to be honest with you, because I can be, I have a background in speaking and coaching people, so I can usually see gaps and can speak into it. I had nothing but praise. Father Simon, I thought you did an amazing job. And so it's a really good example that's out there for our viewers to look at and go, could I practice that? Because if you're awkward and uncomfortable, it comes through. And so if you have to practice that in front of a mirror 50 times before you do it as part of your online Mass, then that's on you. Like, you can do that. You can practice. You can wordsmith it so that it sounds good and feels good for you. But you're going to see the components of what Father Simon did in his examples, and I thought they were bang on. And so, yes, we have to learn to talk about money. We have to get good at dealing with the online world. We have to get good at preaching with passion and zeal. Like, all these things that we always should have been good at in this environment, boy, we have a chance to get good at it now.
I'll just speak to that real quick. Thanks so much, Ron. That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. So that's not true.
Is it the only nice thing he's ever said to you? So.
These webinars, man, I tell you, just healing all over the place. It's so great. Praise the Lord. No, thank you. I really do appreciate that, Ron. And I didn't pay him to say that, speaking of our topic. But I would encourage you, somebody was asking, where do you find that? You can go to our website, stbenedict.ca/watch is where you'll find all of our live stream media, and you can click through there. If you go back in the archive on the live stream, you can find, I think the last weekend we had people in the building was March 15th, if I'm not mistaken. And then the first weekend where we were preaching to an empty church was March the 22nd. And so, yeah, thanks. Maybe I'll just really quickly highlight. So what Ron's referring to, it was right during the time of the offertory. So right at the end of the prayers of the faithful, before we moved into the offertory, into that song, I was encouraging people to give. And a couple quick things that I highlighted on is to explain, there's so many teaching moments that we don't fully understand, to explain, hey, the offertory is a time where we're part of the sacrifice. We're offering ourselves to God. We're uniting ourselves to Jesus who's being offered on the altar to the Father in the Spirit. But part of that giving of ourselves includes giving our finances. And so I just said, and I was really convicted that first weekend, it just kind of came to me, and I really believe it was the Spirit, to say, because I realized that we do have viewers from all over, including maybe some of you who are on this webinar. Thank you for joining us and praying with us and following along. But I was really convicted to say, give to your parish first. Like, the last thing I want to do is take funds away from other parishes. Give to your own parish first. Just because you're not physically going or you're not able to go, continue to give. They need your support. And if you can bless us at St. Benedict, we would be so grateful, because obviously we need to keep funding this mission here, and we want to keep being able to offer what we can to bless all those who are without any kind of church experience right now. So that was kind of, I think, the core gist of what I was trying to get at.
Yeah. One of the things that we've always promoted around the whole idea of giving is, we don't talk about fundraising. We talk about faith raising, and faith, where, our giving is an aspect of our discipleship. It's not just an ends to a means because we have to run this organization. And I think we have to look at it even in this season as what does it look like to be generous as a disciple in this season, whether that's for your parish or other people, and so the aspect of how our finances is connected to our discipleship doesn't change when things get tough, and only things that we follow through on, when things are going well. And so obviously, if it's a new topic, for pastors to be speaking into, think through it, be sensitive about it. Obviously, and be wise in your communication, but waiting 6 months before you talk about it, or 2 years, or sometime down the road when you think it's going to be easier, isn't going to help your cause at this point yet.
Yeah.
So,
do you know what, Robbie? As you were sharing, I was just thinking, like, there are some churches out there that have really counted on fundraising to be a really important part of how they fund their church. And this is going to be one of those times when that is going to fail you miserably. And thanks be to God. If we took the same amount of time and energy that we spend on fundraising and spent it on making new disciples and building people up in their faith, and then taught people to give, because when you raise disciples, you raise givers, and get out of the fundraising business for the love of Pete. Because now you're going to feel it harder than anybody else right now. And so consider that a gift straight from God himself, and take those resources and that energy, and for the love of Pete, start evangelizing and bringing people into a life-changing relationship with Jesus Christ, and then teach them about what it means to tithe. And then we're not going to oh my God, this is an incredible opportunity for the global Roman Catholic Church. I'll tell you that right now. I'm so excited about it. And so my heart goes out to you if that's your situation, but consider it a blessing, and let's shift now. Let's take our strategy for fundraising, or for funding the mission, and let's shift it away from events, fundraising events, and to raising up disciples. I can say that because nobody's here to throw me off the stage or throw any tomatoes at me, but honest to Pete.
I was just remarking in the chat box here that somebody by the name of Dan O'Rourke just pointed out that there's no more church bingo. It took a global pandemic to bring an end to church bingo.
is that an upcoming webinar we're going to offer?
Maybe. Yeah, we should. Yeah. Can I just add one more thing to this point? Yesterday, I got a phone call from a parishioner who's a wonderful, generous parishioner, and he and his wife, they just phoned me up out of the blue. And all it was, to be honest, was they wanted to check in on me and see how I was doing. And I just felt there's so many people like that who just love me, love the church, the mission, and that they just want to be loving support in this time. And I think he might even be watching us right now. I'm not sure if he had time to tune in, but he said this to me just real simply. He said, "Don't be afraid to ask for money. Don't be afraid to ask for money." It's that simple. This is somebody who's a very successful businessman who's had a great career and been incredibly generous in all kinds of places. But he just saying that, and I just want to put that out there to any priest or any church leader who you're feeling unsure of yourself. It gets easier as you do it. I think we do have to overcome that sense of, and you might even write out all the fears of, I'm afraid people are going to judge me. I'm afraid people are going to think that I'm going to take the money and live it up. Or I'm afraid that people are going to think Father doesn't understand how hard it is for me, or I'm afraid of this, or I'm afraid of that. And it was actually my associate pastor, Father Alex, who recently was reminding me of this. He just said, like, either, and I want to come back to that point you mentioned, Rob. It was so simple, but I don't know if people caught it. Giving is part of discipleship. Giving is part of what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ, period. And so either we believe that when people give of their financial resources, it's going to bless them. It will bless their own lives. It will help them grow in detachment, help them grow in love with Jesus more deeply, help them get more deeply engaged in this. Or we don't. We just believe that this is kind of this painful thing we have to make people do, and so let's get on with it. But no, I believe the former. I believe that when we give, it actually changes our own hearts. And so I just want to speak that word of encouragement to anybody who's feeling afraid, that it is a good news message that you're being asked to share.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. A practical question for you, Father Simon, in the Q&A box is St. Benedict furloughing staff? There's a desire here in the UK for non-essential staff to be set aside in this way, or is it the opposite, or is the opposite the case? Should we be investing more in the front end of mission currently? So how are you in the downturn that some are feeling? How should we be approaching staff and responding to our parish staffs in this season?
So yeah, is St. Benedict furloughing staff? I assume
furloughing is laying off, or?
Yeah, I was going to say we might be. I don't even know what furloughing means, but I think I have a feeling it means, laying people off or whatever. The answer is no. And we've got a decent sized staff, and so
furloughing is leave of absence, and I think I had to look it up because I didn't know either.
Thank you.
Furloughing is a leave of absence so that they can stay on the benefits and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily letting them go.
Okay.
Just so you know. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Ron. I'm seeing one person saying in the chat, reduced hours, not laying off. Temporary layoffs is another way of looking at it. Or reduce. Yeah. So anyways, different. I think that it might mean different things, but essentially reducing to some cold storage. Oh my gosh. Okay. This was my approach, because the thought crossed my mind, man, like, what are we going to do? Because I love our staff. We have an amazing staff, and they work so hard, and I care about them and their families, and so what are we going to do? And so firstly, I did all the practical things, like I got our finance guy Chris to look at where can we save money, and also look at practically what are some of I know there's people from all over the world, so there's going to be different government packages, stimulus packages that you can tap into. And so I think it's wise and prudent for us to say what are the things that we can take advantage of now. There's some places, for example, that if your revenue is reduced by a certain amount, you can actually the government will help pay salaries, as an example, or you can defer mortgage payments, or there's all kinds of, there's some dioceses that are even deferring their diocesan tax, their assessment. So there's different ways that you can save money in the short term. And what I did was, and we do have some savings as well, and I felt confident that we'll be able to get through this. But what I did was I called an ad hoc all staff meeting as soon as we could, and one of the things that I think is so important as leaders is to speak into some of the things that we're thinking or feeling inside, and what's that Andy Stanley quote, Rob, that you can still be clear even when you're uncertain?
Yeah. Yeah. Being clear in times of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just said, listen, it's probably crossed your mind. Like, are you going to lose your job? Do you have security here, et cetera? And, I can't see into the future. I don't have a crystal ball, and I can't make these kind of ironclad 100% guarantees to anybody. But I will say this, here's our situation. We're working in every way we can to save money and to be resourceful. We do have some savings. And of all of the resources we have, our number one resource are you, the people. And I will do everything I can to make sure that you don't have to worry. I have a confidence that you will not be losing your jobs. And I just tried to speak that word, like, be at peace. Because the last thing I want is for people are not at their best when they're afraid, when they're living in fear. And so that's how I responded to it. There might be other parishes that you're going to have to find. Maybe the solution is to look at what the government offers are, and for somebody to actually be laid off temporarily or furloughed or whatever the right term is actually the right and prudent thing to do for a season, so that you can make it through and they can collect some form of government support. So anyways, feel free for the others to weigh in on that point.
Yeah, no, I think part of it is, and it's not like all our staff are continuing to do exactly everything the way they were before. I mean, we're repositioning our staff. We're thinking into how do we shift roles? How do we realign? So we're just not sitting back saying, hey, don't do anything. We're going to keep paying you. We're activating our staff in whatever we can to maximize, this season as well in that. So, trying to think through some of those things, but don't see staff as an unnecessary weight in this season. See the value that they bring, and think of the value they bring through financial lens, as well.
And I would say too, to any of the staff that are watching, be willing to adapt and innovate yourself. Like, be a team player in this environment. Like, it's not the time to say that's not my job description. It's a time to say, what role do you need me to play so that we can win in this season? And so, leading's hard at the best of times. It's going to be extra hard in this season. Be somebody that the people that lead you can count on to adjust, adapt, innovate, and be a real good, positive team player. This isn't the time for whining and complaining and holding on to things that you don't need to be holding on to. This is the time to be a team player. And so I'd really encourage that. And again, Father Simon, when you start talking about, the government assistance that's in place right now and the options possibly with the diocese, and dioceses need to pay their staff too. So some of them might be able to forego some of that tax, but some of them might not be able to. So please don't judge them in that. I'm sure they're making difficult decisions in this time right now as well. But this is a time to mobilize lots of people to help you do the research necessary to figure out what all of your options are. Don't take it on yourself. This is a time to release people in roles where they can contribute. And so resist the temptation to feel like you have to do it all yourself. People have space to help right now, and they want to help. So mobilize them. You can literally be creating a culture of mobilizing people in a time that you wouldn't think that would be possible, but it is possible. Mobilize people to help you. Don't just take on more and more yourself. Create a team. There was one of the churches named that they created a new team in this environment, and they called it the Stream Team. And I thought, I love it. Like, they just came up with a really catchy, cool name to really embrace what we needed to do church online and community online, evangelization online. But, when it comes to the finance committee, have them repurpose themselves. Have them start to execute and be proactive in these ways to bring solutions to the pastor and his team to make great decisions. So anyway, just a thought.
We're getting a lot of questions about online giving, and I'd love to just do a quick poll question now around, does your parish have online giving or other methods beyond the offering plate. So they might not necessarily be all online. It could be some form where it comes out of your bank account automatically. But love to just kind of get a sense of where we are at as an audience beyond kind of the traditional just passing the plate and receiving the giving that way. With that being said, we are getting some questions on what does it look like to develop giving online, and this is something that we've try and been work at for a number of years at St. Benedict, or I shouldn't say we've been trying to develop online giving. We've been trying to develop non-traditional ways of giving beyond just the offering plate at Mass on the weekend. So Father Simon, is that something that would you just kind of speak into that a little bit? How can parishioners or leaders, I guess, kind of step into that space in this season?
Sure, yeah. So one of the things that was definitely being developed in the culture was, as you say, non-traditional means of giving at St. Benedict. And we have this thing, we call it PAR, pre-authorized remittance, which we keep saying we need to rebrand it. But anyways, the idea is that you can set up automatic deductions from your bank account to give in that way. And when I got here in 2015, I was actually quite surprised that there wasn't online giving, like being able to go to the website to give through a credit card. And it was something that I just kind of noted and have sort of put the pressure on a little bit. And so it's fairly recent for us. It was just about 12 months ago that we did get online giving up and running, thanks to the team. And there was, it's like anything new. There's always going to be pushback. And some of the questions were, well, if we go to online giving with credit cards or whatever, then this company will take 2 or 3% or whatever that is. And my argument is, like, people don't carry cash. And so if we're going to assume that there's people coming to our churches who are not regulars, they're not prepared to give, they're not going to have cash with them. So if they're going to give anything, then likely they've got a credit card in their wallet and that's it. And so what are the ways in which we can set them up to remove as many barriers as possible? And so if somebody, gives $10 who wasn't going to give any dollars, yeah, I'm okay with giving $3 or 30 cents, I guess, whatever the math is, back to whatever company that will help us do that, so that we can free people up to give in these new ways. And what we found is that it has really helped. So you can give through a credit card. E-transfers is another way. We set up an email address so people can give directly from their bank account as well. And that's wonderful because there's no fees in most cases with that. But yeah, we're just trying to think outside of the box for how to, in 2020, you just think about it. How do people shop? How do they, what is their relationship with money? Most people aren't carrying around a money purse, with coins jangling around. They're giving with their phones even, and things like that. So somebody was asking me just the other day, do you guys have text to give? And I was like, no, we don't, but maybe we should get it. Text to give. There you go. Why not?
Father Simon, I have to say too, as a parishioner, like when we had the mission with Father Matthias this Lent, I just loved it. And I am terrible for having cash. I never have cash. And so it was the first time I'd ever given like that. And so, when you were making that opportunity possible and you threw up the options, I didn't know what I was in for. I thought, oh man, is this going to be complicated? Why am I going to have it? It was so easy. It was double click my phone, like decide how much I want to give and double click it. It took me 2 seconds and I was so happy to be able to give, because if I would have had to bring an envelope, that would never happen. And that goes for envelopes too. Like sometimes we have special collections and we get those envelopes. I never look at the envelopes. And so if in Mass you're saying, okay, and here's the second envelope or whatever, but if you forgot it, do the double click, I'm telling you, you're making my day. The percentage I pay, that is a non-issue for a lot of people today. Like, I know we can get caught up in that, but man, I think we got to let that go. We're in a world where there are all kinds of technologies, and those are businesses. And yeah, there's a business model behind those businesses and convenience. And so we know that, and people are okay with that. And so from a convenience perspective as a parishioner, I'm just saying, thank you, Jesus. It's just so helpful to be able to do that. So it's not an inconvenience. So thanks.
Yeah, cool.
I'd love to just see what our response is around online giving. And does your parish have online giving or other methods beyond the offering plate on Sunday? 88% say yes, 11% say no, 1% doesn't know. We've only got a couple minutes left, but Father Simon, could you just take a minute, and I mean literal minute, and respond to the challenges in a lot of our churches, whether it's there were some comments about older parishioners struggling with engaging with online church and online giving and some of this stuff, and how can we encourage people that maybe it's not just new to their church, but maybe they got a bit of a fear of technology, and what can be some of our reactions to that in these seasons? Because some parishes skew older, and for a lot of parishes, probably the majority of their finances would come from a bit more of an older subset within the church.
Mm-hmm. Well, a few things. We were literally talking about that this morning. With our leadership team, Rob and myself and Tanya and Father Alex, we're chatting through some of these things. How do we engage? Because we don't want to leave anybody behind, and especially those who are feeling most disconnected right now. So how do we can even find out again who those people are? And a big shout out to Kate and Noreen, who are just so instrumental right out of the gates. That last weekend we were together, they were like, we're going to be outside after Mass, and we want to take down names and phone numbers of if you have a computer but don't know how to get onto our website or don't know how to get on live stream, we've got a little card to give instructions. And just talking to Kate before the call, she's literally been doing tech support with people, older folks who they're afraid of Zoom or something, and it's like, here, we can walk you through this. It's not that scary. And I think a lot of people, they just need to be given the peace of mind that, if I use my credit card online, then it's going to be safe. Like all of my information isn't going to be stolen and used all over the place. So that's a part of it. And I mean, there's also ways in which we've set up, we have a mail slot at our church. And so if people want to drive by and just drop off their envelope, they're most welcome to do that. Other places I know they're saying, hey, save up your envelopes for a chunk of time and then you can give them in. So there's different ways to do it. But I would say get together with your finance council, your leadership teams, and just start talking what are the ways that our people, we're going to, again, remove the barriers to make this as easy as possible.
Yeah. So lean into the other financial people, use your finance council, let them speak into this season as well. Well, gentlemen, I want to say we're down to our last couple of minutes. So I want to thank you for joining us today. I also want to be just speaking to our audience. There was a bunch of other questions out there. I tried to summarize a few into some of the answers that were given, and I didn't get to all of them. I apologize. Some of them I just clueless to answer, so I just ignore them. I apologize, but we will continue to be responding to some of these questions in future sessions. And so coming up, would like to just sort of highlight what's happening on our next webinar, which will be coming up on Friday, and it's getting comfortable with I don't know, and developing solution-minded culture. And so how do we step into this place, and how is it that we lead well when so much is up in the air and we really don't know how to respond to it? Also, at the beginning, I referenced this, but we have a DR resource kit, and you can go to our website and find that. But that's got a ton of tools and ideas. We had some questions about how do you develop engagement around online church? How do you reach out to people? What are some different methodologies? But it talks about how to communicate, how do you meet as a staff, what does doing online church look like, how do we, impact the community beyond us, and then a lot of resources to kind of point towards how do we engage this financial piece of church as well. So you can go there, register for that resource, and get that. It's just I think it's like 60 pages of stuff, and it's just huge, and it's an amazing resource for us to draw on this season. And so we want to thank you for that. We want to thank you for joining us today, and trust that you found this very helpful, and continue to lead well even in these challenging times. So thank you for joining us.